Hello everyone and welcome back to Cities Skylines 2, where we are playing Easthaven County here on the southeastern shorelines of Massachusetts. In the most recent episode we developed this large area here with farmland, named it Cape Autumn, but also established the small town of Brightwater Springs. And overall I'm pretty happy with how this turned out, with these custom made farms and small communities, but also these small suburban subdivisions. In particular, this one seems to be a pretty nice place to live. In today's episode, we are switching our focus from the more rural communities to establish a rail yard over here in West Point. And yeah, I've finally named the city. I want to thank you all for many nice suggestions. In the end, the best suggestions you guys had, I couldn't really pronounce. I'm not kidding. I can't pronounce Ventura, not the same twice at least. So I figured that with my amazing creativity, West Point would actually do. But yeah, we're finally building the massive rail yard so that we can get some actual train traffic into the region. Before we get that far though, there are a few major changes I just want to quickly go through that I've applied here in Easthaven County. So the first one is that we'll be switching the map texture theme with this map texture replacer mod, and we'll go for the Brixton Bay theme. This is an almost entirely new theme that just went up on Thunderstore, which is really cool. It gives us this really lush green grass look and some different cliff textures as well. And I think with these autumn leaf colors here, it's just a very strong contrast, but it's pretty exciting to look at, and I'm just happy that we have some different things. And then, just like in the most recent episode of Riverview, I'm introducing the land value overhaul as well as the realistic density mods, and they cause massive changes. The land value overhaul mod means that land value is calculated more realistically, and that means that instead of having to spend all your income on rent, our residents have been able to upgrade their businesses and their houses, so we've seen a lot of upgrades and we don't really have any high rent issues anymore, which is very nice. And for the realistic density mod, it basically doubles, or in cases almost triple, the amount of workplaces in industrial, commercial and office assets to more realistic levels. So I've also deleted a bunch of our existing workplaces so that we can kind of recalibrate the city. And as a result, we have seen a pretty steady increase in the amount of jobs to a more realistic level, and it's going to enable us more balanced zoning, especially having a more balanced ratio of residential opposed to non-residential zoning. And I think that just about covers all the changes, and we're ready to dive in. So for the final thing to say, if you enjoy my content, I would very much appreciate a like on this video. Let's go. Now, before we jump straight into the rail yard development, we've got a little issue to try fix though. Crime is a bit of an issue here in Easthaven County, and I'm thinking if we check the statistics, it's probably just been a steady, it's been a steady increase for a while. We can very clearly see when we actually built the police station sometime in the spring of 2025, but yeah, crime rates has been steadily increasing again, and we've only got a single police station, which is the, let's see, this must be the Chowder Bay Police Department Southport Station. And it's got 6 cars, all of them actively in use. So I'm hopeful that if we just upgrade with a garage extension, which doubles the amount of vehicles available to the police department, then that's at least gonna alleviate the issue. But we're gonna follow up on this and see if that's actually sufficient, or if we need an entirely new police station somewhere else. And now it's time for the big one. So the big issue here is placing the rail yard. As most of you probably know, it's quite a chunky asset. I was considering trying to place it within Chowder Bay, but I think that's gonna be a bit too much of a squeeze, and I don't want to do too extensive terraforming. I want to try as much as possible to work within the limitations of this archipelago. We got open space here in Cape Autumn, of course, but I think there's a spot here in West Point that we could use. There's a pretty flat area here. There's a lot of train tracks here already, and I'll make sure to make a connection down here as well, so that the trains that spawn here can actually serve the entire county. But I think this is actually the spot we're going for, so I'm just gonna buy a couple of extra tiles. Then I think I'm going to make sure the game is paused and then just delete the train segments we've got here, because I'll likely have to redo some of this. I am going to ensure that the area here is flat, just to make sure this big asset actually works as intended and doesn't look too funky. Then we're probably gonna disable snapping, so we've got some free placement. Now let's see, we could actually also turn it around like this. That way we don't have to draw these train tracks too much inland before we are able to connect up. Let's see how this is actually gonna look. And I'm gonna have to demolish some of these suburban outskirts as well, but I want to try and demolish as little as possible. Maybe this is actually... this is kind of tricky. Tricky. I think we're going for...
10 years later.
Let's just do something like this, and I'm just gonna place it here. That's the first step. The hardest step, just getting it placed, because of course that's a pretty defining step for how this development is gonna look. And then we're just gonna create a very simple connection, make sure it's all connected up. I'm gonna have to demolish these houses here, these roads. Yes, it's not strictly necessary. I could make some sort of really curvy connection, but I don't want it to be, you know, too crazy. I want it to be believable, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And that's why I'm also gonna have a bypass track that's gonna, you know, just completely bypass the railyard. And that's of course gonna be this one. So I'm hopeful that we can just carefully maneuver this past as such, and then connect that up to this track here, as well at least, because we're also gonna connect that up to this track up here. So, ooh, that's gonna be a bit tricky unless we actually do some manipulation of where this is placed, which we can, of course. So we're gonna move the bridge a bit further to the, what's that? It's gonna be west. And it had a bit of an elevation. I think this is around, this is about 10. We're gonna move, I think we're gonna move all the way out here. Let's just enable some contour lines. Something like this is gonna be more like it. And it seems we're gonna have to raise the elevation a bit so that we don't see a steep decline to the bridge segment. I really don't want that. Then we're gonna go down again and make sure this is connected up properly to this segment here. And we're gonna need a long, nice curve. And this is another reason why I love the Anarchy mod so much. I don't have to buy all these tiles to build infrastructure here. Yoink. And let's see, that looks pretty good and should make for a much easier connection, both to this one but also to the actual railyard. But let's see, we've got a single double track at the railyard we'll connect to, and it's not a too bad incline, 2%. I can live with that. And then I'm gonna make this connection as well. And I think this connection is probably as good as it's gonna get, and that's fine. It's not gonna be perfect. And I think this one we can actually branch to both. So we'll go out by 47 and then down, and we'll go out by the same and then up, and then we can actually just connect to both of these 2-lane tracks here. Now we're trying to branch off so that we can connect up to the double track at the railyard. Whoops. There you go. And then we'll of course need to make sure we can branch off and connect up these smaller one-laners as well. And it seems I've got to be careful using Anarchy, because that's of course going to allow for some pretty crazy connections, but it is going to look pretty weird when we actually take a look at it. So yeah, let's move in and clear up some of the foliage here, because we've got a lot of stuff clipping, which looks super weird. And that means we are all connected up now. I redid the segment a bit by just elevating the terrain here and making these into keys instead, because I thought it looked maybe just a bit too dramatic, having just bridge segments here. Dramatic as in very expensive as well. So, and I think I'm actually gonna just try and raise it even more. I think it would probably be cheaper for the engineers to try and work with some of the more elevated land around here. And I've definitely got a drop here that's too steep, which I'll get fixed, but otherwise I'm pretty happy with the connections. So we're gonna add 2 additional things to make the railyard a little more interesting. First, I'm gonna do a bit of terraforming here and just add a few extra tracks. You know, for storage purposes of different, like maybe some of the locomotives or whatever it may be. I'm not an expert on trains, but I want to just make sure that it looks a little more interesting, this entire train yard really. So I am just adding some extra tracks for detailing purposes. And this is not gonna work. I can't just eyeball this. We'll start here, then I'll have to make a more structured approach, but I'm gonna save that for a little later, because something else I want to do is expand the road network here ever so slightly, so that we can get a few warehouses and really a bit of an industrial area really in here. So I'm gonna, let's see, I'm gonna go up by 1 here. So we're just leaving 1 zoning tile, because I can use developer mode to then place warehouses here. They will work and function, but effectively they're gonna overlap with the railyard, which is nice that we can do that, because for some reason, you know, we've got a lot of green space and bushes and stuff as part of the railyard, which I don't really think is necessary at all. But fortunately with developer mode, we can make the whole thing a little more built up. Anyways, just gonna continue the road here so that we've got a bit more space for some industrial units. Now, before we dive into actually placing down some assets, there's sort of a big thing I've forgotten here. The access to the Port of Westport, which needs freight train access. Yeah, I got a bit of an issue in the fact that I really don't want an at-grade crossing here. So I think that given that this is intended for freight rail, and that I really gotta watch the percentage-wise, you know, decrease or increase, you know, for the slope, then we're gonna have to dig down this highway, make a bit of it sunken at least. So I'm gonna delete these segments here. And then I'm just gonna get a rough idea of what kind of connection we'll need to do here. So I think ideally it curves something like this, and that's a 1.3% increase in elevation, which I think is fine. That's probably the best it's gonna be. So I think I'm actually just gonna place this up front, and then I'll jump into my road services, and we're gonna convert this segment into a bridge segment, and then we'll do a little digging to lower the highway. And I'm gonna use Anarchy to create this, because I don't want to lower it all that much, because I don't really need that much clearance. Without Anarchy, the game is going to require a lot of clearance, but in reality, that really shouldn't be necessary. This is probably a little too little, but we'll try something like maybe this contour line then. And for starters, we can just can use some kind of prop to check our clearance. So let's just go and grab a fire truck. And as we zoom in, we can see that we've got plenty of clearance. I mean, we could go one contour line up to get even a bit less elevation. So we could go for something like this. And I think I'm gonna do that. The game, like I said, wouldn't allow this if I don't have Anarchy on, but yeah, fortunately I do, so it's not really a big problem. Then we're gonna use our slope terrain tool to right click up here and then just drag out so that we've got the most gradual slope we can. And we're gonna do the same over here. Right click and then drag from somewhere around here, and I think that's a pretty decent slope as well. And of course then it's just a matter of getting the 2-lane highway in place again. So we're gonna go, it's a 3.2%, 3.4. So this is probably where the this is at the lowest level, and hopefully we can get a decent connection here, and we can. And then we've of course got the highway segment here, which leads to the port. So I would like a direct connection to this highway network as well, to ensure that the industrial traffic can easily get onto the main stretch of highway. So this should be fairly simple. Something like this, and then perhaps a few adjustments to just allow for a bit of a better traffic flow. There we go. That is pretty good. I'm gonna come in with some softened terrain tooling here. I mean, we could make this a little cooler actually, and a little more complex, and we're all for a bit of added complexity, especially since we don't have like an actual highway or interstate network over here in West Point. Let's just try something a bit else. I'm just going to clear some of the foliage around here, so we've got a bit of an overview of what we're working with. And then we're going to clear out this hill here, just smoothing it, making it a little more easy to work with. Then let's upgrade this stretch of highway to this configuration and split this stretch of highway to a different configuration. Make it all a little more interesting, because then we can have some dedicated lanes here to really ensure efficiency for the freight traffic leaving, and will of course also enable you to head towards town, and will of course also enable you to head from this direction towards the port, as well as we'll do here. Just line this up and get this lane in place, and we should be able to downgrade this segment, and we should be able to downgrade this segment as well. And then we'll need to apply a few rules. We don't want this lane to be able to turn right. You'd use this ramp instead. And we don't want you to be able to turn right here either. And then we'll add a traffic light for good measure. This should enable pretty high traffic throughput. And we could even make it a bit cooler and increase the traffic throughput by, let's see, enabling an additional lane here to bypass anyone looking to turn left towards the port. And we could upgrade this to a segment such as this, as well as over here. Get this in place, and there you go. I think that's looking pretty good. And it's very nice to finally see the activation of our first train line that stops here at Chowder Bay train station and follows the train tracks to the north to our neighboring cities. We've got a single train on the line now, and it's moving north. And let's see, the destination is Shaftesbury, which I guess is fine. We can always name it something else. But I think this train line we should probably name MBTA something. I know that there's this Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority commuter rail system. It doesn't go all the way down here actually, where at least where Easthaven would be located, but I think we're just gonna make the fictional line anyway. So basically you can take this line all the way to Boston where it terminates, and you can of course hop on to other commuter lines as well and reach many smaller cities of Massachusetts. But I think this is what we're gonna name it for now, because we don't really have any intercity trains within Easthaven. Additionally, for the sake of realism, we're gonna make sure it's only a day line, and I'm only gonna have a single assigned vehicle for now, because I don't really expect to see lots of passengers just yet. There's about 30 or something, 44 on the line, including at the stop right now. So it's hopefully gonna expand in the future. Anyways, I think it's time we do a little checkup on our city's statistics for crime, and we do see a slight drop. Nothing dramatic, not what I had hoped for with a, we pretty much doubled the amount of patrol cars on duty, so it's probably got something to do with the location of the Southport station, because there's quite a bit of a distance into the, well, it's actually not that bad. You've got 2 at-grade crossings here, and then you're pretty much in downtown. Something else I noticed, which is a bit fun, is that it seems that Chowder Bay is just more plagued by crime than West Point is, which is pretty interesting because it's a lot further to get here for the police cars. So crime is a -9 detractor from downtown West Point, whereas we move over to Chowder Bay, then it's -9 for downtown, but here in the highly dense Old Town it's a -12, so it's a bit interesting to see. So I'm wondering if we have more patrol cars on duty in Chowder Bay. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 cars on active duty over here, and as we move over to West Point we've got 3, and we don't have any cars patrolling Autumn Cape or Cape Autumn currently. But it's a bit interesting to see just how much more crime there actually is in Chowder Bay. Not really sure what's causing it. Of course it is a bit bigger as a city, but it's an interesting dynamic. Anyways, I don't want to build a new police station just yet, so I'm gonna try and relocate this Southport station to be a bit of a more central location. We've got an area here where we've got some mixed industry, we've got a bit of commercial, different stuff, so I'm just gonna try and remove these roads here. I'm going to remove this road here, and then I think we're gonna move the police station over here and see if that's gonna result in an improvement, simply having it a bit closer to downtown Chowder Bay. And let's just move it all the way out here, and yeah, of course it's gonna be a bit of an issue for the established companies here, but oh well. And we've got our upgrade with us, we do, so we've still got our 12 patrol units. And I think we're gonna need a road maintenance facility as well, because I'm checking out Massachusetts Route 28 here as it moves south and north throughout Cape Autumn, and I don't know if this is a Pontiac GTO or what it is, but he crashed his muscle car, and if we move a bit further north, we've got 2 additional crashes. Someone who crashed here, and oh, this is a motorcycle. Not great. Anyways, this led me to have a little look at our roads, and it seems that the condition is sort of bad. So we're definitely gonna need a road maintenance depot. Seeing as we've just relocated Chowder Bay Police Department's Seoul Police Station from Southport, I think we've got a bit of space here where we can actually get this placed in, but I would like to get it at a bit of an off angle. So we're gonna do just a tiny bit of terraforming here, and then add an additional little road. Let's see. I'm hoping this is fine, and then we'll try and grab the building, and maybe if I do a manual adjustment I can get it perfectly aligned. Yoink. And then I'll create a little roundabout here at the very end without even eating into the space of these houses. That is absolutely perfect. Assuming that they'll start dispatching some vehicles. Yeah, okay, yeah, rub it in my face. The roads are in terrible condition. And it's actually interesting to see the graphical updates here as they start clearing out much of the city, updating the roads. It seems we've got about 56 commuters making their way to Boston, or one of the smaller towns along the way here in southeastern Massachusetts. It's about 10:30 soon, so it's a pretty late time to be commuting, but oh well, they might have a late meeting or something. And if we check our updated crime statistics, we are starting to see some pretty steady decreases for each hour passed. So it seems to me that it has been a pretty good decision to relocate from Southport to Northport. I'm always amazed at my creativity. And just get that extra police presence close to the densely packed downtown Chowder Bay. It also seems that, at least for a few buildings, unreliable mail service is really detracting from their happiness and thus their willingness to upgrade. This makes sense because we don't actually have a postal service in Easthaven yet. So let's see. We're gonna grab the post office, and then I think we're gonna build it within this block here, getting rid of some of this dirty industry that I don't really want there anyways. And we might just do, let's see. I think I'll just pause, place it here, and remove these industrial units. Get these buildings out the way, and it's going to be a United States Postal Service, Easthaven. Or actually, it should probably be Chowder Bay. A USPS. Great. Any upgrades we want to do? If anything, for aesthetic purposes? I don't think so. Not at this point in time. We'll get a bit more commercial in here, I feel. So we're starting to slowly weed out the industrial units here on this area, this northern part of, or what is this? It's actually the western part of Northport, which is pretty good because I think you know, as time progresses, we're gonna start encroaching on the industrial, you know, areas of the city, and this area is a pretty good start because it is very close to the build-up areas, and I don't want too much pollution. So having the police station and a USPS station here, or office here, is a pretty good start. Now, of course, with our USPS office in place, we're gonna have to place some mailboxes throughout the city. And it was this guy who really complained, so I'm inclined to place one right outside the door. So I'll just be placing these throughout. And yeah, I should probably not place too many. That's gonna be a bit unrealistic. And try to place them primarily alongside major roads that cut through areas. So I think this is fine for the central island, and then we'll add a few to West Point, a couple in the heart of downtown, near the marina as well. Then we've got a suburban street creeping its way all the way out to King Acres here, Garnet Crossing, and Barlow Croft. And then we can have, I think we're gonna have a single mailbox here in Brightwater Springs to serve the rural Cape Autumn. They're so cute. And we've now gone from unreliable mail service to reliable mail service here on 21 Cypress Lane, and it's reached level 2. And I think as it reaches level 3, it's actually gonna be a visual upgrade, so pretty cool to see an actual effect of my changes. I say that, and then I check the neighbor 27 Manor Street, and this guy is still complaining about high crime and unreliable mail service. So, you know, it seems like everything changes in just one block, which seems a bit odd, but Alright, more time has passed, so we're doing a little checkup on our crime reduction policies. I'm trying to be tough on crime here, and it's not really working. It's kind of stagnating a bit, and if we check in with some of the inner city areas over here in West Point, then we can see that high crime is the biggest issue currently troubling these communities, and probably the main reason that they're not really upgrading all that much. And getting upgrades is gonna give us much more diverse buildings, which is pretty much what we want. So let's be real tough on crime and place another police station over here. So unfortunately, as you all know, the police station is actually quite a sizable asset, and I do want it somewhere centrally located because this is where crime is the biggest issue and the population density is the highest. So it's all about just trying to find a city block where it's not gonna carve up too many nice buildings, but it's gonna be a bit of a tough one. So I'm actually thinking of just placing it here maybe, because I really don't have the space. I could place it here and then remove that lane, but it's also just gonna look a bit odd, isn't it? Actually, let's do that. Let's place it out here so that it's not too invasive for the actual downtown core, where we want the beautiful cozy old buildings. And yeah, I removed the road, and now we've got zoning issues, so that's pretty annoying, but kind of typical of the game for some reason. Why did it change the zoning of Lake Lane up completely? It doesn't really make any sense, does it? Anyways, I'm gonna try and fix that by just carving a path through here, and then we're gonna rezone with the row housing we lost. And the same thing over here. Guess we're just gonna upzone the whole thing while we're at it. Get a bit of row house density in here. It's probably gonna look a little better near the police station anyways. Something like this. Anyways, I'm of course hopeful that the addition of 6 patrol units over here targeted West Point is, yeah, okay, we just saw a bunch of upgrades just as we placed it, but hopefully this should help. And we're gonna name this West Point PD, let's see, downtown station. We're gonna check in with crime a little later. We've done a whole lot of other things now. Let's return our attention to the railyard. We wanted some warehouse units here, so we're gonna search for warehouse and plop. And the reason I'm going for warehouses is that I don't want any chimneys out here at all. So I know that if I choose these warehouse buildings, there are not gonna be any. And I guess the cool thing is that we can actually move these assets all the way up to the railyard, so it kind of looks like they're a part of the actual building, which is pretty cool. Gonna build one here as well, maybe just move it a bit, try and stitch them together a bit like this, and I'll just add a few throughout. And I think this is fine. We're just gonna do some very light detailing, pretty much just placing a bit of pavement around these assets here. It's a very small thing, but it just adds a bit to the overall visuals. And I think in this case, I might just extend the existing textures here. Something like this. And let's just designate this as a district so that we can kind of see how many workplaces we've got. Just overall track the activity out here. Just gonna call it the rail yard. 24 employees. That's because these buildings haven't been rendered yet, but I'm guessing there's gonna be a couple of hundred out here, which means that they're gonna need some parking, of course. So let's see if we can get our perpendicular parking road going out here. And I'm just gonna place it down, and then I'm going to adjust it afterwards with the upgrade tool to get it real close. And if that doesn't make sense, it's hopefully gonna make sense in just a moment. But if I select it and I say upgrade and disable snapping, I'll be able to move it real close to the buildings here, get it perfectly aligned. We'll go for something like this. And then it's just a matter of adding in the pavement surface, of course. Then adding in a tiny bit of detailing here. Just some random crate piles. Cars are gonna come by themselves as soon as the area starts filling out. Let's see, we'll add a few truck trailers as well. Maybe in between these buildings. And a few trees. It's probably gonna be a little while before we've got industrial companies actually renting out the space though, because we don't really have all that much industrial demand. In fact, our residential demand has really skyrocketed, and I'm thinking it's probably the addition of a massive amount of jobs, in particular through this episode here, due to the implementation of the realistic density mod. So I think we're going to expand West Point, not the downtown core for now at least, but the outskirts with some, public housing developments or something of the sort. So if we grab some European medium density, then I am going to try and zone some high rises here with a bit of a distance in between them. We'll see how this actually pans out. Are we going for 4? And yeah, I'm slowly eating into the medium density demand, but it's not a lot so far. And I think I'm actually going to just move this over one bit, and then we're gonna switch to the North American. Find a place where we can add, we've got a stretch here alongside the railroad tracks, which I think would be pretty suitable for some housing as well. Let's see, are we going for some low rent housing? We could do that. That's actually gonna be our high density demand we're eating into, but I think that's fine. Let's just see, we've got 2 so far, so creating, maybe just getting 1 more in place. Yeah, I don't think we actually have the demand for that, but perhaps we could switch to some medium density then. And just getting a few of those in as well. Something like this. And then I'll just grab this soften terrain tool. Actually, I'll try to level this a bit. And then just soften it. Let's see, adding a key wall here is probably a good idea as well. Then we can soften it. Oh, sorry, we can level it a little more aggressively and then soften it a bit and then add some symbol paths. So let's wait for this stuff to grow. We're gonna... let's see, we'll just adjust this district here to encompass the newly added areas. That should add a pretty sizable amount of housing to Barlow Croft at least. And while this is building, we're just gonna do the tiniest of detailing. It's barely gonna be detailing, just gonna add some pathways. Is that gonna cause any zoning issues? Fortunately not. Maybe I'll just be leveling the terrain here, so I'm just gonna right click and then left click, and then I'm just gonna smoothen it a bit. It's gonna make it a little easier for our pathways here to play nice. And let's see if we can just get a few paths in between as well. And get this connected up. Perfect. And where are we? Down here, I'm probably just gonna go for some sort of simple surface. Some sort of simple surface down here should be sufficient. Hopefully these 2 buildings are identical and these 4 buildings are identical. And of course it seems that these 4 are actually identical. So it's perfect. It really looks like proper single developer development or public housing units. Actually, I may just add some simple paths down here as well. There you go. And then just a few trees, and that's pretty much gonna be a wrap. And in the case of this development, we might add just a key to the side of the path here, because it adds this fence as well, which I think makes a lot of sense when we're this close to the train tracks. And we can even just level the terrain a bit to make the key stand out. I'm also doing a bit of expansion up the main hill here on the island. I think I'm gonna call the neighborhood Central Hill instead, and just add a few more suburban roads as well. We'll just enable contour lines so that we can try and branch off and ensure that we don't have too steep gradients. I'm really just trying to snake my way through here. Let's see. 10% is maybe just a bit drastic, so we'll just start with that for this road at least, and then let's see if we can move up the mountain over here. Could do a road here. Yeah, that changed the zoning. I tried to avoid it, but you guys know how the zoning is in this game. It's infuriating. Adding in an additional road here, and then I've just manually zoned these small residential units. Manually done it to, you know, try and avoid too much messing with the terrain, because this is a bit crazy. And then I just try to flatten in between, and then I'll grab the soften terrain tool and go from up here. Get a bit of a more soft look. Something like this. And then of course I'll wrap up by adding in trees. And with this expansion of Central Hill, and oh, look how happy they are. We've been able to reach the Great Town milestone, unlocking high density business zoning. Very cool. It's going to be very useful for that extra zoning control moving forward, but that's going to be in a future episode as we expand Easthaven County. It's a wrap for this episode. The most important part to get in place was the railyard, of course, as that's really going to enable actual train traffic, both passenger and freight train traffic throughout the county. But we also did some pretty nice improvements overall to just the service coverage overall, yeah. Crime rates finally seeing a pretty good drop. It really did help adding an additional police station and establishing the West Point Police Department. Having that as a separate unit really helped. And I'm also expecting that our job count is pretty substantial. Yeah, it's pretty much... It hasn't quite doubled, but we've got quite a few extra jobs now, and we've got a much better zoning balance. So all in all, I think it's a very positive outcome throughout this episode. But like I said, it's a wrap. If you got any suggestions for the next thing we should build or focus on here in Easthaven County, Massachusetts, please let me know in the comments. I'll make sure to read as many of them as possible, get some ideas for new developments. But other than that, I'm gonna shoot some cinematics for you guys now, and hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.